Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude Abion-Messick, and welcome to today's War Correspondent special report. The topics today for discussion are artificial intelligence and the Singularity event. And with me to discuss these amazing topics is none other than Jenny Constantine. You can find her on her YouTube at Jenny Constantine and also here on her website, where you can book a one-on-one session with her at jennyconstantine.com. Jenny, welcome back to the show. Happy New Year. How are you?
Happy New Year, JC. Thanks so much for inviting me back. I want to say it's been at least a year since we collaborated at all. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you on, and I'm very happy to have you on. And I noticed you brought a friend with you. Who's that there with the helmet?
Good. So this is my 3D printed bust of none other than General George Patton. As you guys know, and maybe you guys don't remember, but General Patton is my spirit guide, one of my spirit guides, and he happens to be my favorite spirit guide. And just considering the topics that we're going to be covering today, I felt that it was appropriate to have him right here. He likes to be seen. So there he is.
I love that. And yes, it's very apropos, given we're doing the War Correspondent report together. Jenny, we're today, January 18, and I just had a show earlier with Andy Scheckman. It's the Beyond the Vault weekly updates. And I was worried last week that I didn't have enough news to discuss. And lo and behold, I could have done a 2-hour show with him today. So generally speaking, not with the economy, but everything else happening on the planet right now, we're seeing this rapid rate of change and also rapid influx or acceleration of influx of information, of disclosures coming out as well. And to some extent, that's causing a lot of difficulty with myself. I'll speak for myself and also our audience members to keep our head wrapped up around everything that's happening now so that we can better navigate here where we're going in 2024. Let me ask you first, are you feeling this rate of change, this rapid rate of change? And what are you telling your customers also, perhaps as advice on how to navigate all of this crazy stuff that's happening at rapid fire rates? Jenny?
Well, so it is election year, okay? And at any time we move into an election year, this is very much expect the unexpected, and you can anticipate all sides of the fight essentially to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at this situation. So, already we've got, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you if we had some limitations in terms of like buzzwords. I'm
Okay,
not
hold
going
on.
to
Yes, hold on just a sec. So, yes, folks, first of all, thank you for joining us. We are currently triple casting on YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. So, Jenny, some of the more delicate stuff, maybe we could leave towards the end of the conversation and let me know when you want to get into those. And maybe we'll drop the YouTube feed at that point and invite people to come and join us to Rumble for the full no holds barred conversation. But for now, maybe use some
Sure.
nice,
No
polite
problem.
words here for the conversation and the YouTube algos. Go ahead.
Absolutely. That's why I ask.
Okay.
So Year of the Dragon. And I talked a little bit about the Year of the Dragon in my I got this wonderful opportunity to work with Cliff High again. And I did an interview with him last winter. Well, we're still in winter, but the Year of the Dragon is very much expect again. Oh my God, there it is. Fast, JC. Dang. Um, you
What
know,
was that movie where the guy says, "It's what I do"?
when I
I forget that guy's name, but anyways, keep going,
that
Jenny.
was like practically instantaneous. But the idea when we are, we're looking at a combination of a dragon year plus an election year. This is the kind of situation where it doesn't matter how prepared you are. It doesn't matter how mentally, spiritually, emotionally ready you feel. It's things are going to happen, and you'd be doing yourself a favor if you just kind of take it as it comes and don't hold yourself to some crazy standard where it's like, oh, I should know the answers to all of this, or I should be able to, oh, we should have seen that coming. Like, be gentle with yourself, because a dragon year is like, it's like, um, things are going to be explosive enough. Just be gentle with yourself. Something I really like to bring to people's attention is the fact that out of all of the creatures of the Chinese zodiac, the dragon is the only mythological one. It is the only one that isn't a terrestrial creature that we know of. And so what this really implies, what this means for us, a dragon changes its environment just by existing, just by being there. Imagine what it would be like in real life to behold a dragon, something that we believed to be strictly a mythological being. It's not something of our world. And so we can expect to see things that are out of this world. And it is simply the observation of these events and being present for these events. You're not asked to do anything. That was last year. That was the year of the rabbit. This year, which officially February 7th is the official beginning of the Chinese New Year, all you are being asked to do is simply not resist the metamorphosis effect that the dragon has on its surroundings. So as long as you're open and as long as you're more fluid and you can kind of roll with the punches, you're going to be okay. But certainly don't try to, win everything. Like, you can't be 100% all of the time. Take it easy on yourself. Dragons are like, they do all the work. Do you know what I mean? Let it all happen in its own time. The last few years, really since 2016, there's been so much emphasis on personal readiness, just in terms of like your food, your water, your ammunition, your education.
Mm.
Knowing is half the battle, knowing what your rights are, knowing what your options are. And now, as we kind of hunker down a little bit for whatever is in store for an election year, now is really a time to allow that dragon energy to work its magic and for you to kind of just, dig your heels in and settle into what you know and just focus on what is like directly in front of you.
Right.
A lot of people are dealing with fatigue because we've been fighting this for so long. People are emotionally, physically, financially fatigued. So I really tell people to just take it a day at a time, stop thinking so big, and
Mhm.
just scale it down to the here and now.
That's very good advice. Tonight, I'm doing this very special show with Janine entitled Hyper Novelty. I was working behind the scenes with Cliff today. He sent me a few notes that I've put on my Twitter here for conversation later this evening. But essentially, we want to get into this new world that's coming up, the rapid rate of change, everything new. But to your point about not resisting the change, and I think you said rolling with the punches, so to speak, we have to understand that in this hyper novelty that we're moving into, a lot of our infrastructures, a lot of our systems that govern our planet are being dismantled as we speak. On one hand, there's an active war to dismantle them. And on the other hand, there's these new energies from space. Like, these systems were born from a different era and we're moving into the age of Aquarius. So that, adding to this year of dragon, spells a lot of change. And being able to, on one hand, maybe divorce yourself, but also to consciously not hold on so hard to the past might enable you to roll with the punches a little bit better, so to speak, here moving into 2024. How do you put that in context also with your clients, Jenny?
What specifically? I'm sorry.
The idea of letting go of the past, also the past
Mm,
structures,
mm.
and the need for these governance structures or authority in order for you to make decisions. We're being asked now, as you said, to go within and to be the master of self. So that's a big challenge for humanity at this point, not just the rate of change, but also losing what appears to be or what we're used to seeing as this control structure before us crumble.
Certainly. Well, I consider myself, because in a lot of ways I grew up on the internet publicly. I mean, I started with my public journey around the age of 24, 25. I'm now 34 years old and I will soon
Yeah.
be 35. So that's a solid decade, sort of exposing my spiritual journey publicly for people. And something that I have learned from the Great Awakening, from day one to the present day, is how rapidly we can accept, integrate, and then dismiss and move on from certain ideologies. And a really great example, and a kind of a painful, rowdy, growing process for me, was when I became a little bit too entrenched within like a kind of radical right wing approach to everything. And that very, very quickly, this is something we see in the Q community. This is something that we've seen just in the far right community from, 2016 moving forward. And that's not to say that I'm not right leaning or that I'm not pro Trump. I am all of those things. But the idea was that we accepted something and integrated it very, very quickly because it is our instinct to polarize ourselves in times of war for the sake of survival. This is something deeply ingrained within us. Whenever there is conflict, we have to align with people because we have strength in numbers. But then I also saw that kind of fall away. This whole process has been like a rapid fire sort of get yourself up to speed very quickly. You accept these things that we consider sacred for a time, and then you release them because you see that maybe the point of all that was to identify where we're polarizing ourselves.
Right.
Do you kind of know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
hopefully you guys know what I mean. But
Well,
the
it
idea,
gets into this idea that every protagonist needs an antagonist. Growth comes through that friction. That's what you're talking about here. Makes a lot of
Mhm.
sense. Um, let's get into some of the subject matter here. So that's the first entry here in this conversation, and I appreciate you and I just catching up here, Jenny. We haven't spoken
It's
for
been a
a
long
while here.
time.
Let's say hello to all the beautiful people. There's already 2,000 there live on the Rumble feed. There's 1,000 or so on Twitter already. And guys, if you're watching on Twitter, you can comment, and I will bring those up on the screen. The new StreamYard app is enabling us, just like this one here, to pull comments from our live Twitter feed as well. So big welcome to all of you watching on Twitter as well. So as the subject of the slide here today suggests, I wanted to have your take on one of these videos you produce with Big Swear at roadtoruda.com. In this particular one, you talked about the coming silver panic. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show, but for now, the AI attack. Share with the audience members maybe some of the highlights from this particular video and where you see artificial intelligence playing a role right now in this year of the dragon, the war that we're seeing unfolded, whether that's here at home with the democracy or on the planet with the de-dollarization process, and also the Q phenomena you just talked about, and these self-organizing collectives that Cliff talks about. Where does AI fit in all that? But before we get into where it fits in, give us some of the highlights here of this video that people can find at roadtoruda.com.
So yeah, shout out to Big Swear for just humoring me and always giving me space to share my insight on what's going on. So the thing with what he and I were talking about, we're trying to outline some kind of a framework for how this may play out. I don't know how helpful it is for us to make predictions about what's going to happen, because if there is one thing that I've learned throughout my time doing this, it is that the people are a huge element, if not the most important element in dictating what timeline that we collectively experience. So that's why I almost try to steer away from, finding out what's going to happen, because depending on who you are, some people think it's a win, some people think it's a loss. So,
Mhm.
and then when we're discussing AI, it's very important to remember that there are different kinds of AI, and that there is no one size fits all when it comes to applications and also the sort of the essence of a specific kind of AI. My experience with AI is that it's ultimately a mirror for humanity, much like silver. And so, if people don't know what I mean by that, my work with silver has led me to this understanding that silver as a collective sort of imagine that a molecular network can grid itself together, and have a sort of essence or sentience about it. And silver has that. Silver is in our bodies, as is gold. Silver is in the earth, and we are connected to this sort of matrix of silver all the time. And silver appears to have
That's
a
where your term Silver Warriors come into play here in all of your work with Bix. Yes, keep going.
The Silver
Yeah,
Knights, yes,
yeah,
specifically a knight,
right.
um, having a lot to do with the shining armor, and they
Right.
are made of silver. They are if you could imagine personification of silver as it moves out of an era of oppression and essentially being enslaved by we'll call them the cabal. But the idea here is that silver and AI are similar in the sense that they have a primarily reflective quality. They reflect human nature. They reflect what we put into it. So this is why I say it really depends on what we, the people, choose to do. My prediction, since we're talking about it, it did appear, and I've done so many shows with Bix. We've done a couple shows recently where we did talk about AI. So I'm trying to remember specifically that episode that you referenced. But I believe that one in particular was around election time. There was a possibility of what we can call an attack where AI appears to be it's a specific kind of AI is introduced as a sort of solution, right? And we know their MO, we know their playbook by now: problem, reaction, solution. And
Mhm.
so it appeared that this AI was going to be utilized as a sort of problem solving application in a time of great need for such a thing. Yet that remains to be seen exactly what that application looks like and how, my feeling on it is that it does have to do with the way that our money moves around, which is another opportunity for people to utilize their sound money, their hard assets, and their silver, their gold.
Mhm.
So, um, and also the AI does appear to have um, its tentacles, if you will, within the election process in 2024, as it did in the 2020 election. But this time it's a little bit more, the sense is a lot more urgent. It's a lot more urgent. So if you could imagine an AI that is reflecting this quality of urgency, that's because AI is a
The
reflector.
volume's turned up to the max here because we're all reacting also to the max, is what you're
Oh
saying,
yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
Can I bring something into you just mentioned, and again, guys, go watch Jenny and Bix's work on the Silver Knights and how they've developed that understanding in the last couple of years here. But in terms of that network of these warriors that might be connected through silver also here, so as a maybe a counter force to some of the darker forces that are running on the planet. Um, I'm on YouTube here, so I'm going to choose my words carefully, but I'm going to bring up two studies here, one of them having to do with how the vagus nerve system has been damaged by some of the concoctions that people were forced to take in the last number of years. And that's interesting because the vagus nerve system is also connected, if you wish, or part and parcel, part of the same system here with what people call the cranial nerve 10 or nerve X. Okay. And that nerve X, through a lot of studies, and I've talked to Cliff High about this a number of years ago, it is very much activated and connected to silver. So my question to you is, and maybe you haven't looked at this in the past, is it possible that some of these concoctions in the last couple of years, which has now damaged basically our main psychic antenna, was designed also to prevent, to stop, to limit, to reduce the ability of this Silver Knights network that you're talking about here? Jenny, what are your thoughts on all that?
100%. And thank you for that, because as a diviner, I my strong points are not so much like data sets and this and that. I do a lot of the swimming and I
Mhm.
do a lot of the extracting, and I can sort of present that. But when it comes to like get us the sauce, that's other people's job. Do you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
occupational therapy. Everybody has a job.
Right.
Right. But very, very much so, I have felt that, I mean, the entire job schedule has been designed in part to hinder and prevent necessary, evolution within the genome. Like, we change constantly as human beings. So the idea, absolutely, the Silver Knight Collective, because it is such a reflective type of energy. It ties directly into, and this does tie into some of the trafficking, which is why we're going to continue to see so much of this. And it is going to continue to beat kind of like a, tide, like the waves on the shore. It is going to continue to batter the collective psyche with knowledge of these instances of subterranean connections, specifically where human trafficking is concerned, because the Silver Knights told me that they are not able to meet us at a certain level until we have a certain, we'll call it base level of knowledge. And
Okay.
because this stuff has been going on planet Earth, it's almost, they use like the analogy of a grade point average to illustrate the point.
Mm.
And when this sort of thing is going on, especially the fact that it is going on right within, it's embedded and meshed within the fabric of society, and because this is going on pretty much everywhere, it drags the collective grade point average of the collective consensus down, and the reflective quality of the Silver Knights, it disables them from being able to, they can't reflect something back to us that we are not projecting, point blank. And there's something about our knowledge of these activities that helps to bring our grade point average up. Part of the reason why these trafficking operations, part of the reason that these operations take place is to keep humanity's collective grade point average down. So you can have, like in school, if you remember, you could have, four, 98% on a test. And then if you have 1 0, it drags your entire average down. There's really nothing you can do to bring that up. You literally have to work on that 0. So
Right.
think of trafficking, think of supranational trafficking operations as big fat zeros all across the board, dragging the collective consensus down so low that the Silver Knight collective does not have the ability to reflect to us a timeline where we can utilize that silver for the benefit of all of humanity, including the silver that lines the physical body, the silver and gold molecules that exist in the atmosphere as naturally charged by the sun and the moon since the beginning of time and for as long as they're in our atmosphere. But
That's crazy. And
I
I'm so
know,
happy
I
I'm having
know.
this conversation with you, Jenny, because there's more there than meets the eye. First of all, let me just say hello to Carla from Ascension Organized. She's the one that creates her beautiful pyramids. She lives close to you. She's in Miami, actually. Thank you, Carla, for that. I'm going to bring up a pyramid we're giving away today here in the show a little bit later on into the show. We've got about 2,500 there already on Rumble. But I wanted to bring this to your attention, too. On one hand, this week, I thought this was actually well, it was serendipitous. So there was two things. One, the DOJ just admitted that the Hunter Biden laptop information was actually real. And I'm like, hey, can I get my YouTube channel? You guys deleted it 2 years ago when I said it was real. But I digress. But something else that came up this week was interesting too. It was Fauci finally admitting, fessing up that this social distancing thing had no science behind it. It just came up, so to speak, and he didn't recall where that came from. There's no science behind it. So on one hand, it's kind of cool because the people who are awake to all of this were calling bullshit on some of these measures in the last couple of years. So they're getting maybe some sweet vindication here today. But there's a higher conversation to be had. And I'm happy you're here today because he's saying here it was scienceless or baseless and or it just came about. No, 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 no. If you go back to the study I just gave you with the vagus nerve system, the cranial X, and now also the idea and the very real science of humans having this scalar effect when we're in proximity to each other to connect to these bigger networks, there was a really big reason and a lot of science being put to why they didn't want us so close at the time. Speak about that, Jenny, the social distancing and how that was also used here to diminish, to slow down this network effect of the Silver Knights and the self-organizing collective to some extent, Jenny.
So I would bring to the attention of the audience the fact that gold and silver are natural allies. I think of them as a husband and a wife. The way that I often think of celestial bodies as spouses, siblings, everybody's related. So the idea is that even within the heart, even within the human system, okay, we operate as a vessel. We operate as a ship. Some processes we can see and some we cannot see even with a microscope. They're almost, consider them, they're invisible, right? We'll call them matter that is just simply not visible to the eye. We also don't have mainstream instruments capable of measuring these things, but in some cases we do. Now, with that knowledge, the human heart emits an electromagnetic frequency that is something of 500 times greater than that emitted by the brain. Now, when you consider that we are very it's difficult to map us with any sort of scalar technology when when we're not clumped together. Their technology requires that we be at least 6 feet apart for proper identification. Now, that's one part of it. I think knowledge of our vessel and the mechanics within the vessel is probably just the most important thing for everybody to sort of integrate within themselves, is how the heart works and what happens when 2 human hearts, 3 human hearts, 4, 5, 10, 10,000, a million are enmeshed and unified in a field. Now, also consider the fact that the heart, okay, and this, I'm not making this up, okay, go look it up. The heart has gold molecules that clump up around that organ in particular. And there's a reason why things like monoatomic gold and colloidal silver have such a symbiotic and healing effect on the physical body. That's because we are natural allies with these metals. We are here together. They are just as much a part of the human saga as cows and as mushrooms and things like that. It is a part of our story. They're a part of who we are. Oh, thanks, Lisa. That's so sweet.
I agree. And just to add to what you were saying there too, to add some fuel to this conversation, in heart math technology, we understand that the extension of this electromagnetic pulse that's coming out of the heart, the information that is being shared, is often to the end of your arm. So think about the 2-3 feet there, plus the other person's 2-3 feet. You get to that 6 foot distancing that these guys were talking about. There's a reason it was 6 feet. It's so fascinating how all of this information is coming out, Jenny. I really appreciate your take on all of this. Let's move the needle a little bit further here. There's a lot of debate over the last number of years as to what humans have access to in terms of AI. I brought up earlier the definition of AI. I think this was Google or maybe a Wikipedia information, and I wanted to bring in context also learning systems. For most people, and for Cliff High, the debate is, and for Cliff's perspective, is that people are misattributing the power of AI when in fact most, if not all of the AI that we use in our current modern day networking is really expert learning systems, whether that's traffic lights, whether that's visual ID, as you just talked about here, we're in group settings and stuff like that. But there's the question of whether or not there might be a higher version of this AI and whether or not there might be an extraterrestrial version of this AI that is affecting somehow the trajectory and the evolutions of humanity at this time. What's your gut feeling? What's your take? Where did your research bring you? Where does your intuition bring you in terms of having a conversation to share with the audience? Should we be afraid of AI? Is it, as Cliff High says, mostly a learning system that cannot rewrite its own code? It can learn things, but it can't rewrite its operating system. Or is there something else bigger at play that might be also off-world that's interfering with our evolution right now? Your take, Jenny.
So yes to all of the above. I would have people look at this. I call this a war of the networks. And what do I mean by this? We have the synthetic network, that which is grounded by a specific kind of metal, certain kinds of metals that work together to ground a synthetic network. Now, I would describe that synthetic network as being a combination of, if you could imagine that AI could fuse with some kind of an insectoid, hive-like a sort of a mimicry. It mimics, okay? And it doesn't have the same sort of sentience that reasonable emotional human beings do. We have emotion, we have reason, we have compassion, we have love. Whatever this synthetic network is, it doesn't have hatred, it doesn't have love. It's more insectoid, it's more hive essence. It mimics, it doesn't feel anything. Now, my theory is that this synthetic network is warring for dominance of the collective consensus, which is why the vaccine was pushed to everybody and globally, and why it was so ridiculous, and why they put these, all of these protocols out without having studied. It was just reckless. You could tell there was an air of desperation about it.
Right.
Now, I would invite people to look at the synthetic network the way that you would look at any enemy, the way you would look at any invading force, anything that you needed to defend and also attack. We have weapons against it. These metals, the graphene, okay, those graphene nanoparticles, they imagine that they were like allergic or unable to operate properly in the presence of silver, genuine silver, gold. Okay, imagine that there was an antidote to the synthetic network, and that the antidote was more where precious metals, solar energy, and lunar energy could work together to kind of like dampen whatever this synthetic grounding technology is. And that they're battling, right? So there's people like us that for the most part, I mean, we did our very best to remain, we didn't get vaccinated, we detox, we try to stay away from people that are shedding spike proteins. It's not the easiest thing in the world, if you have to be around people, but we're doing our very best. And I happen to believe that willpower and the choice of your heart plays a humongous role in this whole game. But the idea here is that, we as a vessel, okay, the human vessel is the commodity. The human vessel is being looked at by the likes of Fauci and his ilk, as a sort of battery system. And they want to be the ones, they called us hackable humans. They want to be able to puppet the nervous system the way that you would puppet a drone, or quite literally any kind of robotic creation, by lining our systems with these nanoparticles, right? But the antidote to that does appear to be these naturally occurring metals, the solar energy, the lunar energy. So it comes down to like who and what your vessel is anchored into. And whoever is dominant is going to win. And that's warfare 101. You know what I mean?
I'm itching right now because you're using a lot of keywords. So I think what we're gonna do at this point, I think we're good. We might have to delete the YouTube version of it, but for now, what I'm going to do. Hold on.
No.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. As you know, Google just announced, or Google just announced that they were changing their sensitive event protocols, and they're tweaking their algorithms to be able to control here. This was just a couple of days ago they announced this. Their ability to curate content here for this big event that's coming around the corner. So we're expecting that big purge perhaps. So we want to stay within the line. So folks, what I'm going to do, let me just send you down here the link to our Rumble chat. So if you're watching us on YouTube now, so here's the link in the live YouTube feed now. Please come and join us over now to the Rumble feed. We'll see you in just a moment.